Hey, Sycamore View and friends. So my commitment to you right now is that every Tuesday and Thursday at 10 o'clock, we're going to release just a short video just to be a word of encouragement, and I'll offer up some prayer prompts to you, just some things to get you to reflect a little bit. So whether you're listening alone or with family or with friends, I hope this can be a blessing to you. So my family travels a lot from here back to Texas. And it seems like there are a lot of times where my kids, it's not until we're in between Little Rock and Texarkana, or Texarkana and the Dallas-Fort Worth area, that all of a sudden they get hungry, or that's when they have to use the restroom. It's when we're in those in-between places, when we're kind of in between the point A and the point B. And right now there's like this cloud over us because there's so many things we just don't know, like how things are going in this kind of season of uncertainty, and what's like, when's a new normal going to set in, or is there going to be a new normal? And there's just this uncertainty that hovers, this confusion. It feels like chaos. So in the book of Genesis, there are the two primary times where Jacob had these encounters with God that have been written down, and now we know about them. They happen in between places. It's when Jacob was in between his home and Uncle Laban's house, where he's halfway in between, and he has in Genesis 28 this dream of this ladder that comes down from heaven, and this encounter with God. And then a few years later, it's coming back from Uncle Laban's house out in the middle of nowhere. He's in these in-between places where he ends up wrestling with God in Genesis chapter 32. So for Jacob, the primary encounters with God that he has are in these in-between places, which is somehow the places where that's where we feel. Like, I've been in those places in my life. I think of 3 times in my adult life. 3 times when I have felt like I hit a wall, where I've been in that season of uncertainty. One was in 2010, in 2014, and in 2019, where I felt like my joy was stripped from me, where my confidence faded, where I just hit a wall, my heart broke, and some of I couldn't even put a finger on it. I just needed God to put me back together. There was just so many things. There was like this cloud that hovered. So God gave me a word a few years ago when I was preaching through Genesis, and I got to this story in Genesis 28 and Genesis 32, and the phrase was this, and I've used this multiple times now, but in the unknown, God dwells. In the unknown, God dwells. That God meets us in those in-between places. God isn't just at point A and point B. God is in the in-between. I shared this at a Gulf Coast getaway a few years ago, 2014 or 2015. I shared that, in the unknown, God dwells. And I actually got a Facebook post from someone who went back and they took that phrase in my sermon so seriously, they actually tattooed it from their wrist all the way to their elbow. In the unknown, God dwells. It's the most permanent someone has ever gone with a point I've made in a message. And I'm not asking you to go get this tattooed on your body, but just to reflect a little bit. In the unknown, God dwells, because it may just be in a season of the unknown, in a season of uncertainty, where God's going to reveal things about God's character, God's mission, God's nature, what God wants of us in our lives. So may we keep our hearts and our minds open to how God is working with us and encountering in this season. In the unknown, God dwells.